In chapter 1, we have already discussed about automated business processes. Now, in that context, we'll be now talking about financial and accounting systems in chapter 2. It's a very simple thing because you already know about financial and accounting systems, and you also know, most of you might be already working in it, but we have to see the detail, understand the mechanics behind these systems. So learning outcomes of this particular chapter is basically how does it work, the working of the financial accounting system, integrated and non-integrated systems, what do they mean, then business process modules, what are they, what are the reporting systems, data analytics, business intelligence and fundamentals of XBRL, and you have to also consider the regulatory and compliance accounting systems. Let us introduce this topic by saying what is the purpose at all. Basically, we are looking at the financial and accounting systems, its working, audit and use for definitely the business, isn't it? And business management and its development. We have to understand this is an integral part of business because without finance and accounting you cannot work. We will understand during the course of this chapter what's a system and what is an ERP system and what is a financial and accounting system and how to use it for different purposes. Also, how to assess the risks and controls of any system. You being in audit, maybe you do need to understand how to create a control system, also assess the risk, etc. Different people have got different requirements. That's the first thing that you need to understand. That is, each user, there will be different types of users for each system. Now, when we say system, we are not automatically meaning computer systems. We do mean systems in general. What does the accountant want? He wants to prepare accounts without wasting time and effort. So, possibly do it fast and accurately. Correct? What does the auditor want? He wants to check the accuracy, true and fair view of the accounts which are created. What does the owner or the business manager want? He needs right information at the right point of time for making the right kind of decision. There should be a system which will take care of all the three users. It should not be only for one type of user, right? So what is a system? The dictionary meaning is it is a set of principles or procedures as per which something is done, or an organized scheme or method. All systems have inputs, outputs and feedback mechanisms, right? So you have to maintain a steady state despite the changing environment. The changing environment is all that is happening around you, but the systems have to be proper. It should not keep on changing and should have boundaries that are defined by the observer. That is, each system should have a certain rule and regulation which has to be observed and which has to be set. It may have a lot of subsystems and it may be part of a larger system also. That means many systems which form a part of a whole. Systems stop functioning when some part is normally removed. Think of a human system. Human system, your body system, if one part is removed, can the system work? Same way, in this also, one system breaks down, then the whole system will break down. So what is a process? A process is defined as a sequence of events that uses inputs to produce outputs. Very simple. Every system has got several processes. So you put in something, you transform it and then you produce certain output. That is called a process. So that sequence of events whereby input is given, after the input is given, certain events will happen and then an output is produced. Take the example of crocin which is created. Okay, the paracetamol tablet which is created, for which you need to put in the powder. The powder, once it is put, then a process happens in the factory and the manufacturing process, right? There are several steps which happen and then finally the tablet comes out in the form that we know. That sequence of events is what is referred to as process. So business is a coordinated and standardized flow of activities. You think of this tablet manufacturing, then you will understand. Who is doing this? In tablet manufacturing, it's normally done by machines for safety purpose. But it could be done by people also. Why do they do these things? To achieve a certain business objective. Now there are certain concepts that you need to understand in a computerized accounting system. there are different types of data. There is something called a master data and there is something called a transaction data. What is a master data? Think of it as I'll take the example of a school. Okay. Now this school has got several students. So what is the first data that you get about the student? Their name, their address, their age, which standard they are studying in, right? And then which division they are being put in. This is master. This doesn't change. What will change, however, is their marks, which happens every term. Also what will change is their attendance. So this will become the transaction data. So transaction is what happens on a day-to-day basis, and master is whatever is there things which don't change. Now cut to a business example. Business example is a payroll. Okay, so payroll means all the person's data, employees' data related to them, which is permanent, which is known, right? Now what will change is how many leaves they take or how much is their attendance, etc. What could also change is the tax related data. What could also change is the fact that they get increments every year. So those things you will add to the master. But on a day-to-day basis, what will be applicable is how much days of attendance they have in the month. Based on that and based on the master data which is already fed in, the final result will be taken out. Why is there a master and a non-master, as we call it? Because you want to record the input and generate the output. Master data is normally a one-time input and then it is selected from time to time. Now you come to the voucher types. What is voucher? It is a documentary evidence of a transaction. It could be a receipt. It could be a invoice. Correct? Those are all vouchers. Obviously you know it. And you always have a voucher number or a document number. Why is there a voucher number? Because you want to uniquely identify some document, right? So every voucher type will start with a separate numbering series. Why different numbering series? Because very simple. You do need to identify the type of voucher. You have a sales invoice, then it will have a specific code to identify that it's sales. It's easy to pick up, right? And then you will have chronological order. Also there could be some code for the day, the year, right? So it may have a prefix or a suffix. It will have a serial order and it will be as per date. So chronological order. What is the accounting flow? What are the transactions? And voucher entry will be made by the humans as per those transactions. Then it will be posted. So there is a journal entry and there is a ledger. Then there is a balancing. Then there is a trial balance and subsequently P&L and balance sheet. All of this happens through the software. Which portion will be done by the human? The actual transaction and the voucher entry. What are the different types of ledgers? Not really different from what we have in accounting only. In accounting, we have three types, isn't it? Personal, real and nominal. However, in systems, we have a ledger with a debit balance and ledger with a credit balance. Ledger having debit balance is your asset and expense. That concept does not change. However, what changes is we don't call it strictly in terms of personal, real and nominal. That nomenclature is removed. So ledger having credit balances, income and liability. There are grouping of ledgers also. You have four basic groups in accounting: income, expense, assets and liabilities, right? There are many subgroups also. Cash ledger can be under current assets or it can be under indirect expenses. Software cannot prevent the wrong grouping because software will only do what you tell it to do. Remember, rubbish in is rubbish out. So, in computers, if you put in rubbish, it will give you rubbish only. So, you have to make sure that what you enter in that system is perfect. Computerized systems is perfect to know. What is technical concepts? Working of any software. There is a front end, there is a back end. Front end means that where the user interacts with the computer. What is back end? That which interacts with the front end. So there must be something going on behind, right? The processing which happens behind, which we don't bother about. That portion is called the back end. There's a flow. So user will interact with the front end will receive the instruction from the back end will process the data, and then it will generate the report which will be given by the front end to the user. Very logical. Why separate the front end and back end? You think of it this way, that why do you separate in a restaurant, why do you separate the cooking area from the serving area? because there are certain things which are specifically needed for the cooking area and certain things which are specifically needed for the serving area, right? Cooking area, you need to have a lot of experience. You need to do the things with a lot of concentration and effort. In case of the serving area, you need different kinds of expertise. So the domain expertise, that is what you require for each area, is different. That's one. Waiter will be different set of requirements, and a cook is different set of requirements. Even your presentation changes. User experience, you need, the waiter has to tell the user what are the options available to him, give them a menu, and then have to make a decision. Speed will be more if you segregate the duties, right? Always we think of specialization because of that. Also, language. What language the cook needs? Not really much of a language, but where user is concerned, you need to talk to them in the language which they will understand. Now, application software we have discussed in the earlier chapter about the three-tier architecture, application layer, operating systems layer, and database layer. The example that has been given is Oracle and SAP is a type of application software. There are installed applications and there are web applications. So what is this difference? When using software, those which come installed on the hard disk of the computer is called installed applications. And those which are installed on a web server and which can be accessed using your search engine, your browser, and your internet connection, that is called web application. Very simple. I'm sure you all have already done all this. Maybe you didn't know the technical term. That's all. Advantages and disadvantages. Basically, you have to think of it in the point from how do you install and maintain? What is the accessibility of both? What about mobile application, data storage, performance and flexibility? Keep these points in mind and then write down your advantage and disadvantage. There are cloud-based applications also. What's a cloud-based? That which is not stored on your server over here, but that means it is not in a server with you, it is somewhere else, basically. So, financial applications, normally organizations don't want to keep in their own IT infrastructure. They prefer to keep it on the net and outsource the IT functions. That's where this thing comes in about software as a service and infrastructure as a service, where software is provided as a service or even infrastructure is provided as a service. Think of it this way, your Google is giving you Gmail, right? And this Gmail, where are you storing your files? It is certainly not in your desktop, correct? Or your laptop. Where is it stored? It's stored in some cloud which is given by the Google, some cloud space given by Google in some server of theirs in some part of the world which you are not even aware of, and you use that, right? What is non-integrated system? So till now we talked about integrated system. What is non-integrated? Whereby you are maintaining data in a very decentralized way. That means each department will have its own data and nobody will know about the other person's data. It is not integrated. So two major problems is, because one department doesn't know the other person's data, there will be communication gaps and mismatched data. Example is the HR department has the data of employees. What about the payroll department? They also have a list of employees. So if there is a change in the HR department's data, if it is not given in time to the payroll department data, then there will be communication gap and there will be a mismatched data. So we came across a concept of integrated enterprise resource planning systems. What is ERP? ERP means enterprise wide. Entire enterprise is covered together in one single information system. Why? Because each resource, each person need not hold their data separately. That data becomes a resource for all the departments. That same information becomes a resource for every department, and it will become the source for activity for each process. So if you are doing billing, all you need to do is to look up which are the customers who made the order, whether the order has been processed, whether it has been completed, whether it has been sent, and then whether you have to keep up the billing. So everything works together. Each process actually is different, separate from each other, but it works together in the form of a ERP. So it's a single database for all the business functions. What are your business functions? It could be payroll, inventory, there is accounts, there is finance, there is so many functions, isn't it? Everything is looking at the same area for their information. So it's a common database. And secondly, it's a modular software design. Suppose today when you start the company, you don't have experts, but later on experts also have started. So what do? You just add it in as a separate module. Think of a kitchen, right? Kitchen is all modular, no, nowadays. So you have different pieces given to you. You can choose what you want out of that, right? So kitchen cabinet, some parts of the cabinet you can choose today, or you can say, okay, I'll defer that payment later. Or I'll pick it up later as per requirement. Same concept is being used here. What is your advantage then of such integration? Ultimately, each company works differently. Each person is separate, correct? So customization can happen as per the company's requirements. You can integrate, put together all the functions in one place. So what will happen is, one to the other, what movement is happening, you can track it in the system itself. There's increased data security and integrity for the simple reason that one place, if you check, that is adequate to ensure that the access security, access control and all that you can ensure, right? Also integrity. Integrity means things will not be different in different places within the organization. The example I gave you of HR and payroll. So that will not happen. So whatever data is there is perfect. Application also you can control. You can build strong access control, and you can say, okay, this person can see only this part. So segregation of duties can happen. You can automate manual processes, and you can process huge volumes of data because it's in one place, right? It also helps for building up strong reporting capabilities. What are the features of an ideal ERP system? That system is ideal which can cater to the needs of every part of the organization. We have given some list. That's not complete list, but it's somewhat complete. It's somewhat giving you some idea as to what it should an organization might contain. However, the key feature I would say is the data warehouse. It contains the organization's stored data, right? And that can be accessed by an organization's customers, suppliers and employees if that is permitted.